When Stone Cold Steve Austin began rising through WWE, few people could have predicted the impact he would have on the wrestling business. He wasn't the traditional hero that fans had been used to during the Hulk Hogan era. He didn't tell kids to say their prayers or train hard. He didn't smile for the cameras or try to be the perfect role model. He was angry. He was rebellious. He broke the rules, and the audience loved every second of it. The late 1990s were a time when fans wanted something different. Television was becoming edgier, audiences were demanding more realism, and Vince McMahon understood that WWE had to evolve or risk being left behind. This decision gave birth to what would later be known as the Attitude Era. It wasn't just a new chapter for WWE.
It was a complete transformation. Storylines became more unpredictable. Characters became more complex. The action became faster.
The rivalries became intensely personal. Everything about WWE felt fresh again. But Vince's greatest creation during this period wasn't a wrestler, it was himself. For years, fans had known Vince McMahon as the friendly commentator sitting behind the announce desk. Then, almost overnight, he transformed into the arrogant, power-hungry chairman known as Mr. McMahon. The character was ruthless. He abused his authority. He believed he could control everyone.
And there was only one man willing to stand up to him, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Their rivalry became one of the greatest feuds in wrestling history. Every Monday night, millions of fans tuned in to watch Austin embarrass Vince in increasingly unforgettable ways. He drove monster trucks into arenas. He filled Vince's Corvette with cement. He sprayed Vince with a beer truck. He stunned him in the middle of the ring over and over again.
The audience couldn't get enough. Those moments weren't just entertaining.
They became part of pop culture. People who had never watched wrestling before suddenly knew who Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon were. Television ratings exploded. Monday Night Raw began closing the gap with WCW. The competition became fiercer every single week. Meanwhile, another future legend was beginning to shine. A young superstar named The Rock. Originally rejected by fans during his early WWE run, The Rock reinvented himself with unmatched confidence, incredible charisma, and some of the most memorable promos ever delivered inside a wrestling ring. His battles with Stone Cold became legendary. Each encounter felt like a blockbuster movie. The chemistry between them was unmatched. Together, they helped create one of the most successful periods in WWE history. The Attitude Era wasn't carried by one superstar alone. It featured an incredible roster that included Triple H, The Undertaker, Kane, Mick Foley, Chris Jericho, Kurt Angle, Edge, Christian, the Hardy Boys, and countless others. Every week felt unpredictable. Fans had no idea what would happen next. That excitement brought millions of viewers back to WWE. Eventually, the impossible happened. After losing the ratings war for 83 consecutive weeks, WWE fought its way back to the top. Monday Night Raw began defeating Monday Nitro. Momentum shifted dramatically. WCW struggled with poor creative decisions, expensive contracts, backstage politics, and declining fan interest. While WWE continued building new stars, WCW found itself relying heavily on aging talent and repetitive storylines. The gap between the two companies grew wider every month. Then came one of the most shocking moments in wrestling business history. In 2001, Vince McMahon purchased WCW. The company that had spent years trying to destroy WWE had officially become part of Vince McMahon's empire. It was the ultimate victory. The Monday Night Wars were over. The man many critics believed would fail had defeated every major competitor in North America. For Vince, it wasn't just a business acquisition. It was proof that his vision had changed professional wrestling forever. With WCW gone, WWE stood alone at the top of the industry. Some believed there was no longer anyone capable of challenging Vince McMahon. But Vince wasn't satisfied. He continued expanding the company in ways few could have imagined. International tours became bigger than ever. Massive stadium events were held across multiple continents. Television deals reached hundreds of countries. WWE programming was translated into dozens of languages. Millions of new fans discovered WWE every year. The internet also changed the business. Instead of resisting technology, Vince embraced it. The company launched official websites, digital content, streaming services, mobile apps, and eventually the WWE Network, allowing fans to watch decades of wrestling history whenever they wanted. It was another example of Vince adapting before many competitors even realized change was coming. Behind the scenes, Vince demanded perfection. Former employees have often described him as one of the hardest working executives in entertainment. He reportedly slept very little. He constantly rewrote scripts. He attended production meetings. He reviewed camera angles. He approved storylines. He expected everyone around him to match his relentless work ethic. Some admired that dedication. Others found it exhausting, but almost everyone agreed on one thing. Nobody worked harder than Vince McMahon. Of course, building an empire wasn't without controversy. Over the years, Vince faced criticism for creative decisions, business practices, and controversial storylines that divided fans around the world. Some ideas became legendary successes. Others became unforgettable failures. Not every gamble paid off, but Vince rarely allowed failure to stop him. Instead, he treated setbacks as opportunities to reinvent the product once again. That willingness to evolve kept WWE relevant through multiple generations. From Hulk Hogan to Bret Hart to Shawn Michaels to Stone Cold to The Rock, to John Cena,
to Randy Orton, to Batista, to CM Punk, to Roman Reigns. Each era introduced new heroes, new rivalries, and new fans.
And behind every generation stood the same visionary, constantly searching for the next superstar who could carry WWE into the future. Yet despite decades of unprecedented success, the biggest challenge of Vince McMahon's career wasn't coming from another wrestling company.
It was coming from outside the ring. And the decisions made in the following years would forever change both his legacy and the future of WWE. As the years passed, WWE continued reaching heights that once seemed impossible. WrestleMania evolved from a risky experiment into one of the biggest annual entertainment events in the world. Stadiums filled with more than 70,000 fans, millions more watched from every corner of the globe. Superstars dreamed of headlining WrestleMania because it had become the grandest stage in professional wrestling. Under Vince McMahon's leadership, WWE transformed into much more than a wrestling promotion. It became a multimedia entertainment company. Movies, video games, reality television, documentaries, toys, clothing, mobile apps, and countless licensing partnerships turned WWE into a global brand recognized even by people who had never stepped inside a wrestling arena. For decades, Vince remained the driving force behind almost every major decision, whether fans loved or hated a storyline, whether a superstar was pushed to the top or disappeared from television. Vince's influence could usually be found behind the scenes. His fingerprints were everywhere. That level of control made WWE unique. Unlike most sports leagues or entertainment companies, one man's vision shaped nearly every aspect of the product. Vince believed that success came from constantly evolving, taking chances, and never allowing the audience to become comfortable. Sometimes those risks created unforgettable moments that fans still celebrate today. Other times, they resulted in controversial decisions that sparked endless debate across the wrestling world. Throughout his career, Vince introduced revolutionary ideas that changed the business forever. He expanded wrestling from regional television into global broadcasting. He turned wrestlers into international celebrities. He proved that merchandising could become as valuable as ticket sales. He revolutionized live event production with spectacular entrances, giant stages, fireworks, cinematic storytelling, and unforgettable presentation. He created WrestleMania, an event that became wrestling's equivalent of the Super Bowl. He helped launch the careers of generations of legendary performers who inspired millions around the world. Without Vince McMahon, professional wrestling would almost certainly look very different today. But every empire eventually faces its greatest challenges. In the early 2020s, Vince became the center of serious controversies involving allegations of misconduct in corporate investigations. The headlines dominated sports and entertainment news, creating uncertainty around WWE's future. As pressure increased, Vince stepped away from his leadership role, marking one of the most dramatic turning points in company history. For the first time in decades, WWE had to imagine a future without the man who had built it. Leadership shifted, new creative directions emerged, and the company entered another era of change. In 2023, WWE merged with UFC under the newly formed TKO Group Holdings, creating one of the most powerful sports entertainment organizations in the world. It was another historic milestone, but it also symbolized the end of Vince McMahon's direct control over the company he had spent more than 40 years building. Whether people admire him or criticize him, one fact remains impossible to deny: Vince McMahon changed professional wrestling forever. He challenged traditions that everyone else accepted. He ignored critics who believed his dreams were impossible. He took financial risks that could have destroyed everything he owned. He defeated powerful competitors. He survived industry-changing battles. He created global superstars. And he built an empire that entertained generations of fans across the world. His legacy will always be complicated. To some, he is the greatest promoter in wrestling history. To others, he is one of the most controversial figures the industry has ever known. Both perspectives exist because of the enormous impact he had on the business. Very few individuals have influenced an entire industry the way Vince McMahon did. Love him or hate him, the modern wrestling landscape carries his fingerprints. From the bright lights of WrestleMania to the weekly excitement of WWE programming, from sold-out arenas to billions of online views, the foundation of today's sports entertainment industry was built on the vision of one man who refused to think small. His story is ultimately about ambition, about believing in impossible ideas, about risking everything for a dream, and about changing an industry that would never be the same again. Thank you for watching this journey with Ring Insights. If you enjoyed this documentary and want more deep dives into WWE history, legendary superstars, iconic rivalries, and the untold stories behind professional wrestling, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next documentary. Let us know in the comments who you think had the biggest impact on WWE after Vince McMahon. Until next time, this is Ring Insights, bringing you the stories behind the legends.